Namaste, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It is my great honor to be with you at this important and transformative event, redefining Jyotish for the global future, as we need to do today. And I'm very happy to see the line of thought and inquiry that you have created, the original thinking that you are promoting, and your understanding of time, place, and person relative to Jyotish, because the world is undergoing significant changes, whether they are technologically, media-based, political, social, spiritual, and we don't necessarily know where that is entirely going to end up today. And Jyotish can help us see the way forward, and yet at the same time, Jyotish needs to be redevised or re-examined in the current circumstances. What's also happened with Jyotish is that it has also been made technological, and of course, with all the computers, calculations being easy and so forth. I began my study of Jyotish where we had to calculate the charts by hand and all the different calculations. So the society is changing, the world is changing, and we also have a greater impact of the collective karma on the individual karma, as we saw with the COVID and the ecological changes. Now, I'm also very happy to see the sessions that you are doing, addressing these changing aspects of life. Education is different today, vocations are changing, marriage relationships are changing, and yet there's also been a new resurgence in Jyotish study. In fact, the study of nakshatras has been one of my main occupations in the study of Jyotish, where I've been examining the information on the nakshatras in ancient Vedic texts like Taittiriya Brahmana and the commentaries there, and also looking at Jyotish in new light, and also looking at astronomy, and also Jyotish relative to astronomy, and also relative to the astrological symbolism throughout the world. Just a few quick comments about myself and my work. I've aimed at the integration of the Vedic sciences, yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish in particular, and I've done extensive work in all these fields, publications, programs, meeting, education, all of that. I've also done extensive work on history, particularly ancient history, where Jyotish has helped us date certain events and certain literature. For example, it's only in the late Vedic era that the idea of a vernal equinox in Kritika or Taurus arises, and a Ayana, or the summer solstice in Magha or Leo. And so that's already dating back some 4,000 or 5,000 years, and there's much before that. I was one of the first in the West to study Jyotish and to write on it and teach it. And I've been very active, actually less active today, however, in the Jyotish in the United States and other countries. In fact, we are inaugurating next week a Jyotish counseling program in Moscow, in Russia, with other countries we've worked with as well. We've had organizations like the American Council of Vedic Astrology, Council of Vedic Astrology, College of Vedic Astrology, and we've worked with individuals at various levels. In India, we've also had a long relationship with the country on many levels. And Jyotish, we have been very close to the Raman family, starting with Dr. B.V. Raman, Niranjan Bapu, Gayatri Vasudev. We were the first who brought him to the West among them. We also worked with K.N. Rao years ago, and were associated with Dr. K.S. Charak, and also the ICAS and other astrological groups. So we're very happy to connect with you as well, because Jyotish is light of the Vedas, eye of the Vedas, and that must go on for foreseeing the future. And Jyotish also encompasses cosmology, cosmic intelligence, the divine forces and power of consciousness working through the stars and planets. It has a universal vision. It is a sadhana in its own right. Now, as we've said, there are many new challenges to astrology today. For example, in my own work, I didn't even have a computer for astrological calculations until well into my 30s and 40s. And that allows us to calculate more, but at the same time, sometimes we put more emphasis on the calculation. And we also now have so many different issues to deal with. For example, relationship astrology, there may be a marriage every dasha. Marriages are not lasting. People are having fewer children, decline in the family, different sexual choices. I remember looking at charts in Europe, maybe 20 years ago plus, and we found that women who had fifth houses that would indicate children were not having children. In fact, when these houses and dashas were being activated, they would consider whether or not to have children, and then they would decide not to do so, changes in marriage as well. And of course, the job situation is changing radically. It's very curious. The Indians always come to us and ask us about their children, when will they get married, how many children they will have, what will their job be, and so forth, not realizing that all these things have changed. For example, a strong Mercury was very good for communication and media type issues. We've had old combinations for various jobs, medicine, and so forth. And these work to some degree, but the jobs for the future are very different. And here I want to make some background points on the nature of Jyotish. Astrology is a science, but it is also an art. We do not live in a fixed mechanical universe, and we do not have a fixed mechanical, calculatable human being. You'll know we have quantum physics, we have all the variations in cosmology, movements in time and space. As we examine cosmic cycles, we have precession of the zodiac, Malkanovich cycles. We have many Ice Age cycles that come in. We have rhythms, whether it's the day, the month, the year, cycles of the planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Vimshotari Dasha, and so forth. So we have many tools, but many variations. So we always ask our Jyotish students, yes, you need to know the calculations. Yes, you need to be able to memorize charts and hold them in your mind and meditate upon them and let them unfold for you. There are many Jyotish systems and techniques, but we cannot reduce Jyotish entirely to that. We must always remember behind the chart is a living person, and behind that person is a Jivatman who has had many births. And people born at the same time can have a number of differences in their lives. Each individual is reborn with their buddhi and their karma. It is not totally fixed. For example, even ancient texts say that if a certain person is born in the family, a royal family, they can become king. But if they're born in an ordinary family, the most they can do is become the head of a village. So Jyotish is a guideline, but is not a straitjacket in which we can limit people or reduce them to a pattern. Nature itself is never totally mathematically predictable or measurable. Days are not exactly 24 hours. Months are not exactly 30 days. Years are not exactly 360, 365 days. Jupiter's cycle is close to 12 years, but not exactly so. So that means there was always some degree of observation. You need observation relative to intercalary months in the years and for movements of planets. So we don't look at a perfect mathematics as defining Jyotish, but we do need to be aware of the mathematics involved. And here I also want to draw a distinction between predictive astrology and astrological counseling. We can predict a lot, particularly trends in the Jyotish, but we also have to study a chart quite a bit. Prediction is always easier in hindsight than in foresight. And to really understand events in a person's life requires hours of examination of charts and cross-referencing of dates, events, and experiences in the life of the person to verify that. And even today, in the mundane astrology, we use predictions for Chaitra, Shukla, Pratipad, and so forth. But it is never simple because there are so many factors, individuals, countries, time changes, technological changes as well. Then we have astrology as a kind of life counseling using the chart, but also being aware of the other aspects of the Vedic sciences, the gunas, the doshas, the karmas in a person's life. So we must learn to respect that person and respect communication with that person. It's not just what we can see in their chart, but how we can communicate to them and inspire them to take on a deeper life, to overcome our difficulties. No planet wants to hurt anyone, but any force of nature like fire, if we don't use it properly, can cause harms. So we must be very considerate. Our purpose is to guide and to help us with the individual for unfolding what is best possible for them at their particular age and stages of life. Jyotish has wonderful remedial measures, whether it's gems, mantras, pujas, or even just sadhana, pilgrimage, etc. This also is very important. It cannot be applied simply mechanically. There is no magical gem you can put on to change your karma. But if we honor the devatas through the planets, in both outer forms and inner forms, mantra, meditations, temples, pujas, we can help them change their lives, and we can also change our own lives. Jyotish is not simply a career, a financial means, a means of personal development, is also a sadhana. So that being said, I want to go into a few main points relative to the Jyotish. Mundane astrology is very important. As I said today, also the collective karma is affecting us quite a bit. A lot of that is revealed through Rahu and Ketu. The importance of the Rahu and Ketu axis in the chart is significant, whether there's Kalasarpa or not. Kalasarpa is also important in mundane astrology, but it needs to be integrated with the lords of Rahu and Ketu, the planets that are involved, and what they mean. For example, a lot of what is happening relative to the social media, the political media, the mass media, even movies, all of that, appearances, illusions, comes under Rahu. Even the use of drugs, medications, recreational, because of course these are forces involved also with eclipses, and so they are attacking or influencing our lives in a radical nature. Ketu, on the other hand, is also connected to technology, mathematics, innovation, computers. Also, it has a deeper spiritual and yogic method, but it also is connected to factors like surgery, even toxicity, and forces that can suppress or weaken us, negate us, lack of self-confidence. So these have a very important role whenever we see Rahu Ketu rising in the chart, affecting the 1-7 axis. There are often things like change of identity, a loss or divorce between the parents, move to other countries, and so forth, changes in identity. So there are many factors to consider there. And then I also want to make a very important point. Jyotish is extremely relevant relative to psychology. It has importance in medicine. We'll mention that a little bit later. But it is very easy or not difficult to understand a person's psychology from the chart, particularly the position of the moon relative to the sun, relative to its sign, nakshatras, aspects upon it, malefics on either side, a joint, Mars, Saturn aspects. These can afflict the psychology, Rahu, Ketu, and so forth. Similar afflictions to Mercury. The advantage of the psychology is that it's not so difficult to see. For example, if Mars is aspecting the 4th house and the moon, that Pitta, fiery Mars energy will also go into the psychology. And if we have joint Saturn, Rahu aspects, connections with the moon, we get delusions, fear, anxiety. These are also connected to planetary periods and transits involved. Of course, we have combinations like Gajakeshari Yoga with Jupiter that gives well-being to the psychology as well as good fortune in life. Overall, Ketu and its connection also with self-effectivity, doubt. Don't send Ketu people into the battlefield. You're putting them under greater risk. And we also have a way then of helping people, both with short-term and long-term psychological issues through the chart, through the transits, the dashas, and the planets involved. As we mentioned, astrology and health or medical astrology, Ayurveda. It's very curious to note that the combinations that create medical practitioners and those that often make people sick are similar. For example, sun, moon in 6, 8, 12 houses. I've seen a number of doctors, even Ayurveda, with sun in the 8th house. I also have sun in the 12th house with Saturn and Ketu. And we have the Ayurvedic influences in the chart. For example, note the outer planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, which of course have their special aspects. They also go very far to define Mars as the Pitta influence, Jupiter as Kapha dosha influence, Saturn as Vata dosha influence, but there's also the influence of the other planets, signs, houses, and elements, predominant planets. So Jyotish can help a lot with Ayurveda. And for example, the Dasha Bhukti in which a disease manifests can also be a good key as to its prognosis. So these are important parts to consider. And there are many other aspects of Jyotish to examine for the future its connections with astronomy. Mundane astrology is very important. We've done a lot of work with that. Study of nakshatras. In ancient texts, we've examined shaktis of nakshatras, fruits of nakshatras, desires gained through the nakshatras, including in the ancient text and so forth, and their relevance today. There is many more that I could say, special nakshatra deities, but however, ancient deities like Indra in the nakshatras is very different in Vedic texts than in Indra in the Puranas. He is connected to Lord Shiva and Omkara and Paramatma, even in the Upanishads. So much research is required there. So I know you are having a magnificent set of speakers, a wonderful set of topics, and I do hope you will take these seriously. We want a new generation of astrologers, and these are to be you, and we want you to bring this science out into the modern world relative to science and medicine, but also relative to all the Vedic science and yogic disciplines. So with these words, I will end my talk. You can also find us on the internet. I am also doing programs relative to modern India. I have a talk on Times Now tomorrow morning. We are also working with the Statue of Oneness in Omkareshwara and many other groups in the India side. So let us not just raise Jyotish, but raise all the Vedic sciences, yoga, and bring India back to its Bharatiya Sanskriti and raise this entire Vedic awareness for Bharat and for the entire world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frawley. Thank you so much.